I'm here with Nikki Rasmussen and Paul Jones. Nikki is the VP of Business Development at Banyan, and Paul Jones is the VP of Client Success. And I'm here to talk about um, the Banyan experience. And I've said this before in many of my talks, even when they were not here, about how excited I get about what they've done in this space, in the dental space, from a social media standpoint, from a reputation standpoint, from a patient experience standpoint. And I really wanted to talk in this segment about what it is that Banyan does. What's their history? How did they come about? How did they start? And what's the story behind it? Because I think people and dentists need to understand where you came from, what your origins were, what your roots were, and what were you trying to solve. At the end of the day, it's not about the product. It's about a solution that you have that fixes a problem that exists in society or in a business, right? And so I wanted to hear the journey from employee number 5 at Banyan, which is Paul Jones, and he's been there from the early days to the name change. So Paul, talk to us about how did it start? How did the journey start? What were you guys trying to solve
Yeah.
when Banyan started in the space? It was not obviously from my conversations with you and with Brandon and with Tom and with Steve have been always about. It was not about launching some platform.
Yeah.
It was always about solving a problem.
Yeah.
And what was that? So how did the journey begin?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the early days, my experience, it was a lot of fun. So from my perspective, my wife was going to dental school in Omaha,
Okay.
and I had heard about this company, Social Dental. And so I looked at their website, I was looking at things, and I remember having a phone conversation with Tom Clark, our founder, and asked him a lot of questions about that very question. What problem were we trying to solve? What's the why behind the business? And Tom comes from a very unique background where he grew up in a dental practice. His dad was practicing as a general dentist. All of his brothers, his whole family's in the dental space. And so, I think having grown up in that experience, his dad was very good at focusing on the patient and focusing on the patient experience. And I remember being on the phone with Tom and interviewing with him, asking, so what is the why? And he told me, we help dentists make it about people, not teeth. And that's really struck a chord with me because at the end of the day, how many of us have been to a doctor or how many of us have been to a dentist where we feel like we're a number, where we feel like we're just being treated for the treatment that we're going in for, that they don't see us as a whole person? And how many of us have been to a doctor or a dentist where we have felt like they care about us? And so on the phone that day, I was like, I want to work for this company. Because the problem that we're trying to solve is that when you're giving treatments, it's just that root canal you've done a million times, bringing perspective and seeing the person as a whole. That really enhances the patient experience. So we're trying to solve for the patient experience. We want it to be about people, not about teeth. And so that's what drives our technology. That's what drives our marketing. That's what drives how we talk to dentists and how we coach them. Is we're all about connecting. So in the early days, we were Social Dental, and then we rebranded to Banyan, and it's all based off the banyan tree. The banyan tree it's very significant to us, right? The banyan tree doesn't grow tall, it grows out. It branches out to connect with other trees. And to us, that's the visualization of what we're trying to do, is create connections with patients through the provider to the patient to create a much better experience. It's a better experience for the dentist, and it's a better experience for the patient. So it makes life a little bit more meaningful.
If I could add to that, I think the biggest thing that Banyan saw was a need in the market. Because there are so many dentists that say, I know social media is important. I know of its importance, right? And then they look at the daunting task to actually get their patients online. The HIPAA compliant aspect is really what Tom saw. That portion to get their patients online and the tasking process from taking the photo to plugging it into their computer to uploading to signing into all of the accounts, it's a cumbersome process. And in fact, if you actually go from beginning to end, it ends up being about 15 minutes, but it ends up being spread out over days when you're in a busy dental
Sure.
practice.
Sure.
So he saw a need of creating tools that streamline the process.
Right. But in an effort to humanize it, right?
In
I
an
saw
effort
that.
to humanize it, because if not, the patient experience, because as soon as you're taking that picture and then you're having them signing these papers, that's what Banyan did, is they took that need and streamlined the process to create a patient experience.
Right. One of the challenges that I saw that Banyan solved was really helping other people, the friends of patients, relatives of patients, or other people that they knew, understand. And basically, you're creating, I mean, as a dentist, on a daily basis, provided that you're good, and most are, you're providing great service to your patients. And you're creating, at some point during the course of the day, you're creating a moment that deserves to be captured.
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so, so if you can capture that wow moment that you're creating every single day in the office, and if you're able to share that, I think it tackles that's when you humanize this experience. And then obviously, as we know, right? I mean, there's two impediments for patients calling into a dental office: it's fear, and it's cost. And part of that humanizing, I think, solves the fear problem too, right? Because you're less fearful when you see somebody happy, holding a wonderful sign about "I love my dentist" or
Right.
"This was great," whatever that might be. When you humanize it to that level, I think there is more goodwill built for your practice, because you're capturing that moment that you're missing.
That is I love the
Really
fact
right.
that you just hit on that, because we do have to be sensitive to those moments. And the part that we have to be sensitive to is who are those moments important to?
Right.
So those moments aren't important to the practice, those moments are important to the patient.
Correct.
And so if you sense that there is this amazing moment where they feel satisfied or where they feel relief, that's a moment that you can share with them, and that's an opportunity for you to connect with the patient.
Right.
So capture that moment like you're talking about, and then tell their story online.
Right.
And that's where all of this comes into play, is like, you don't talk about your practice online.
Correct.
You talk about your patients. Because as you said, their friends are seeing it, but in reality, you just want to enhance their experience. You want to provide to them a really good experience of coming in and not feeling fear after
Right.
that, or solving
Absolutely.
for that.
I mean, the old proverb goes, right? People will never remember what you said, but people will always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
Right? And so that if you take that into the online social media world, friends of patients and other folks will remember that picture that they saw and the happiness that they saw on the patients, because the dentist delivered an exceptional experience. And you captured that Kodak moment. It's no longer Kodak anymore. Kodak's out of business.
Yeah.
But
That
but
Facebook moment.
the Kodak, yeah, the original Kodak moment. But you captured it
Right.
for the world to see.
Sure.
And I think that is why I feel Banyan, what Banyan excels at the most is capturing the moment in the moment. And when you capture it, people are going to love that. And how else do you do it? You can have people go and write reviews later on, but once they leave, as you said earlier, that life happens and people
Yep.
forget. People are most engaged with you
Sure.
in the moment.
Actually, I have an example of that.
Okay.
We had a practice that was very successful, not online. They were looking at social media, and they were wanting to be more successful on it. We started looking at their posts, and their posts, even though they're posting about their patients, what they were talking about
Sure.
in that post was, "Look who came to visit us."
Okay.
Right? And so if you look at what the headlines of the post were, it was we, our, and it was about our practice, right? And then we had another office that we used it as an example. So they posted a picture of one of the little guys that came into their office. They had a no cavity club picture.
Right.
Instead of saying, "Look who came to visit us," they said, "Milo won. He took first place in his wrestling match. He's holding his medals." They talked about the patient.
Right.
right? So the moment wasn't created in the office. His wrestling match didn't happen
In the office.
in that office. But what that shows is the relationship that the little boy has with the office and the office staff, right? You're able to see character through the picture, and then what they're talking about him, right? So they've created the patient experience by what they said, and they made it about him, not about them.
If you think about it too, dentistry is a very community-based experience. You're serving people in your community, you're seeing people in your community, and you're seeing the police officers come in, you're seeing political officers come in, you're seeing the teacher that teaches in the 5th grade. So in terms of community, the dental practice is a place where the community goes and gets these experiences. So highlighting your patients is a part of connecting to a broader community. And how traditional is it in dentistry where we're involved in schools, or where we go out and we meet with a football team, or we're so connected into our community, we just need to continue perpetuate that in the social media space.
I mean, it's wonderful to hear this from, and that's the reason I get excited about Banyan, because again, we talk about this quite a bit, is it is about your community. It's about building trust in the community, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when you build trust, and trust is built in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
And it really starts online first,
Yeah.
because that's where the patient sees you first. And then as the patient goes through the life cycle of getting treatment from you, he or she creates that trust and translates that to other people.
Mhm.
That's like, oh my God, my teacher, Mrs. Smith, goes here, and it looks like she had a wonderful experience. So maybe I, as a mother who basically decides on 70% of dental decisions in the country, I decide that because my kid's teacher goes to this dentist, I'm going to go. And it's about creating trust, right? I think that's the differentiator between Banyan and a lot of companies out there. And I think most of them, it's not about posting, right? It's not about boosting those posts. I mean, everybody talks about all these things but it's about reputation, it's about trust, it's about engaging with your community, and it's about spreading the wow moments continuously with your community, so that they feel. And the other problem you're solving by doing this is the attrition that happens. We're seeing anywhere between 12 to 20% of patients don't even come back. But now that they're engaged with you continuously, and you see amazing things happen in your dental office, you're inclined to return that call from the hygienist saying that, hey, I want to come back to this place because this is a place
Sure.
that I trust.
Well, we've seen a shift in loyalty. There's
Really?
Patients are no longer going to the dentist because they're their neighbor, right? People will pay for an experience. If they have an experience, and that experience starts from the very first time they start to look for you online.
Right.
Once they find you, if they can create a relationship before they even meet you,
Right.
incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful.
And Banyan fits right there in that. Is
That's
that creating
our
a
space.
relationship, creating a trusting relationship with the patient even before they call.
Exactly.
And it puts them in the great persuasive mindset that I'm calling this wonderful place, and there's wonderful people here, and the staff's wonderful. When I call in, I'm more inclined to make that appointment, provided the phone person answering the call is good, and the whole experience. But it's really, really important. I mean, obviously, new patients are the lifeblood of the practice today.
Exactly.
If you don't get new patients, you're not going to grow, and the attrition is going to continue, and then you're not going to have a practice
Exactly.
eventually.
But retention.
Retention is
insanely
huge.
important.
Especially because it is a community based. So
Exactly.
you really have to think about the way that you treat every patient, because you don't have an unlimited supply of patients coming into your practice.
Sure. So that's what I think the why of Banyan, as I understood it, from talking to you guys as well as Tom and everybody else, is really about, facilitating the community to understand why they should trust this dentist to take care of their health, and that is why the Banyan model is powerful, because it creates that trust, and everything you do on top of that, it makes the marketing works better, because if you're spending money on AdWords or whatever medium you're spending money on, and you're driving traffic to your site or whatever it is, and then you don't feel that, then you wasted all that money,
Exactly.
right? You wasted all that marketing money, and then there you are. So it's really important first to fix the foundation of how you appear to the society
Yeah.
as a practice, and how you can build that trust, and then you start everything else. So I think Banyan is really the foundation of where you should start your journey in really attracting new patients and retaining existing ones.